Maybe if you weren't so mentally ill, he would have liked you more. That's what she said to my face, with her friend secretly recording the whole thing. I've always tried to be kind, patient, empathetic, but when you've spent your life being bullied, you learn to protect yourself. I didn't break, bit back. And by the end of that night, she was crying in a bathroom and getting kicked out of the bar. So, am I the asshole? I'm 21 now, and I'm proud that despite all the difficulties, I've grown into someone who chooses kindness over cruelty. This is especially important to me because I struggle with bipolar II disorder, OCD, and ADHD. My mental health issues are generally well managed, though I still occasionally experience depressive episodes and face OCD triggers. The story with my ex-boyfriend Jake is a separate chapter of my life that I'd prefer to forget but can't. We broke up under very unpleasant circumstances. After several months of dating, he simply stopped responding to my messages and calls, complete ghosting without any explanation. I was confused and deeply hurt, but that turned out to be just the beginning. Soon I learned that he was actively trying to ruin my reputation among our mutual friends. He spread rumors, distorted stories about our relationship, and portrayed me as unstable and toxic. Simultaneously, he began demonstratively pursuing romances with other girls right in front of me. I remember one instance when he deliberately brought a new girl to my house, and they kissed on a bench across the street. Who even does that? Despite all this, I never reacted publicly. At home, I cried into my pillow, called my best friend and vented to her, but in public, I maintained my dignity. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of seeing me suffer. About 3 months after our breakup, Jake started dating a girl named Olivia. I felt no hostility toward her. After all, she wasn't to blame for how he treated me. Moreover, I even felt some sympathy for her because I knew what kind of person she was getting involved with. Especially after I found out that even while dating her, he was still trying to accidentally cross paths with me through mutual friends and hinted at the possibility of rekindling our relationship. I wanted nothing to do with him, but the anger over how badly he had treated me hadn't gone away. Our social circles overlapped significantly, and I understood that sooner or later I would encounter them at some event. Honestly, I tried to prepare myself emotionally, repeating mantras about staying calm, about how the best revenge is living well, and so on. I thought I was ready for anything. But I was wrong. Last Friday, our group decided to go to a popular bar downtown. It was a place where we often gathered both before and after my breakup with Jake. I hesitated about whether to go, suspecting he might appear there too, but ultimately decided not to change my plans because of him. It was my favorite place, and why should I give it up? We arrived around 10 in the evening. The bar was already full of people, the music was blaring, and the atmosphere was festive. I was chatting with friends, sipping my cocktail, and genuinely having a good time. And then they walked in. He was holding her hand and looked completely normal, as if there had never been anything between us. She was a pretty girl with shoulder-length blonde hair and a plus-size figure, dressed in a tight black dress. My ex immediately noticed me, and I saw his eyes widen in surprise for a second before he turned away and led Olivia to the bar. I decided to ignore their presence and continued enjoying the evening with my friends. We had a reserved table in the corner, and I hoped the physical distance would help avoid awkward moments. However, about an hour later, I noticed that Olivia had already passed by our table several times, each time casting studying glances in my direction. Another half-hour later, I heard her laughing loudly and saying something to mutual acquaintances like, I don't understand what he saw in her. And too skinny looks like a boy. I continued to ignore these attacks. Nothing new. I'd heard similar comments all my life during school bullying. Unfortunately, with each glass of alcohol, Olivia became bolder and louder. At one point, she walked past our table and literally shouted, "He says I'm the best girl he's ever been with." My friends exchanged embarrassed glances, and I just shrugged and took a sip of my drink. Inside I was boiling with indignation, but outwardly I remained calm. I wasn't going to stoop to her level. At around 1 in the morning I went to the bathroom. 2 of my friends went with me, and while they occupied the stalls, I waited for them, touching up my makeup in front of the mirror. It was at this moment that the door swung open, and Olivia entered, accompanied by her friend. From the way they looked at each other, I immediately knew this wasn't an accidental meeting. Olivia's friend stood in the corner and took out her phone. Not even trying to hide it, she began recording what was happening. Olivia approached me closely. She smelled strongly of alcohol, and with feigned sympathy on her face began to speak. "Listen, I just want you not to take everything so personally," she began with a fake smile. "Sometimes people just aren't right for each other, you know? He just loves me, not you, and neither you nor I can do anything about it." I silently looked at her, allowing her to continue this humiliating monologue. Irritation was growing inside me, but I continued to maintain external calm. "You're very beautiful, of course," she continued, giving me an appraising look. "Just not his type. He prefers women with curves, not such skinny ones." I continued to smile and nod, though I felt my patience wearing thin with each word she spoke. Who even approaches a stranger like this in a bar bathroom? "You know," she lowered her voice as if about to share a secret. "He told me about your problems. So sad. It must be hard for you." Tensed up. So my ex had told her about my mental health. Information I had confidentially shared with him when we were close was now being used against me. "Maybe if you weren't so mentally ill, he would have liked you more." Those words hung in the air between us. Time seemed to stop. I felt something click inside me, that very defense mechanism I had developed over years of standing up to bullying. I slowly turned to face her, looked straight into her eyes and said, "And maybe if you weren't so fat, he wouldn't still be liking my bikini pictures." The smile instantly vanished from her face. The friend with the phone looked as if she'd seen a ghost. Olivia opened her mouth to say something but didn't make a sound. I could see her eyes filling with tears. At that moment, my friends came out of the stalls, and the atmosphere became even more tense. They immediately sensed that something serious had happened and stood beside me. Without saying a word, Olivia turned and left the bathroom, her friend following her. When we returned to the hall, I noticed that Olivia had put on her denim jacket, although it was quite hot in the bar. She didn't take it off for the rest of the evening. Over the next hour, the situation only worsened. Olivia continued drinking, now clearly trying to drown out the hurt and humiliation. I saw her go to the bathroom several times accompanied by friends, and each time she came out with increasingly red eyes. At around 3 in the morning she made a scene. She began loudly sobbing and screaming at my ex right in the middle of the bar. The bartender approached them and politely but firmly asked them to leave the establishment. The next morning my phone was blowing up with messages. The story had spread throughout our social circle with the speed of a forest fire. Opinions were divided. Some thought I should apologize to Olivia for the comment about her appearance, while others were convinced she got exactly what she deserved. I didn't feel particularly guilty about what happened. After all, she had first brought up my mental health, something far more personal and painful than physical appearance. Nevertheless, some friends' comments made me think. A couple of days after the incident, I met with my best friend Emma at a cafe. Throughout this whole drama with my ex, she had been my rock, always offering support and sensible advice. "Listen," she said, stirring her latte. "I understand why you reacted that way. She definitely crossed all boundaries with that comment about your mental health. But I think you should look at the situation from another angle." "What other angle?" I asked, feeling slightly irritated. I had expected that at least Emma would be completely on my side. "This girl is in a really sad situation," Emma continued. "Everyone knows your ex is still obsessed with you. He may be dating her, but he constantly talks about you, compares them, possibly even mentions how much he misses you." I frowned. The thought that he was using another person to fill the void after our relationship was unpleasant. "Besides," Emma paused, clearly choosing her words, "you know you're very beautiful. Many girls envy your looks. And Olivia? Well, she's cute but more ordinary. She probably feels insecure around you, especially knowing about your ex's obsession. You think her behavior was dictated by insecurity?" I asked, beginning to see the situation in a new light. "I'm sure of it," Emma nodded. "It doesn't excuse what she said about your mental health. That was absolutely unforgivable. But I think her behavior says more about her own complexes and possibly about how your ex treats her, than about you." This thought had never occurred to me. I had always seen Olivia as the aggressor, but perhaps she too was a victim of my ex's manipulations and her own insecurity. "So you think I should apologize?" I asked after a long pause. Emma shrugged. "I can't tell you what to do. But think about it this way. You know what it's like when someone hits a sore spot. Your mental health for you, her weight for her. Maybe you're both victims of the same person." Emma's words stuck in my head. Over the next few days, I constantly returned to them, analyzing the situation over and over again. On one hand, Olivia had definitely struck first. She had deliberately used my mental health issues to hurt me, information my ex should never have shared with her. Moreover, she did it in front of a camera, obviously planning to use the recording somehow. On the other hand, I knew what it was like to be vulnerable, what it was like when someone hits your most painful spot. Wasn't this what I had always tried to prevent when I defended others from bullying? Wasn't this why I prided myself on my empathy and kindness? Additionally, there was a possibility that Olivia herself was a victim. My ex could be manipulating her, constantly comparing her to me, telling her she wasn't good enough. He could be feeding her insecurities to control her, as emotional abusers often do. I remembered how she cried in the bar, how she put on her jacket and didn't take it off all evening. My comment about her weight had hit the mark, probably her most painful point. And although at that moment it brought me instant satisfaction, now I felt nothing but bitterness. After several days of reflection, I made a decision. It wasn't the easiest decision, but I felt it was the right one. I found Olivia on social media and sent her a private message. "Hi Olivia. This might be unexpected, but I wanted to talk about what happened at the bar last week. I understand there's tension between us because of Jake, but I think we both deserve better than fighting in a bar bathroom. If you're ready, I'd like to meet and talk face to face, in a neutral place, without alcohol and without recording devices." Let me know if you're interested. I didn't expect her to respond, but to my surprise, she wrote back that same evening. I was wondering if you'd ever write. Yes, let's meet. I know a good cafe downtown. We arranged to meet on Saturday afternoon at a small cafe that was far enough from our usual places to minimize the chance of running into mutual acquaintances. I arrived first and chose a table in the corner to give us more privacy. When Olivia entered, I was struck by how different she looked without makeup and in casual clothes, jeans and a loose sweater. She looked younger and much less confident than she had at the bar. "Hi," she said, sitting across from me. "Thanks for suggesting we meet." "Thanks for agreeing," I replied, surprised by her tone. I had expected hostility, but instead I sensed nervousness and perhaps even shame. After we ordered coffee, an awkward pause ensued. Finally, I decided to just get to the point. "I wanted to apologize for what I said about your weight," I began. "It was cruel and below my own standard of behavior. Regardless of what happened before that, I shouldn't have attacked your appearance." Olivia looked surprised. "You're apologizing to me? After what I said about your mental health?" "What you said was very hurtful," I admitted. "But that doesn't justify my reaction. Two wrongs don't make a right." She lowered her eyes and began nervously twisting a napkin. "I need to apologize too. What I said, it was terrible. I know how hard it is for people with mental health issues. My sister has bipolar disorder. I don't know what came over me." "I think I understand," I said gently. "It's a complicated situation for both of us." Olivia looked up at me, and I saw her eyes glistening with tears. "You have no idea how much. He constantly talks about you, you know? Shows me your photos, tells stories about your relationship. Sometimes I feel like I'm dating your shadow." My heart sank. Emma was right. Olivia was indeed a victim. "I'm really sorry you're going through this," I said sincerely. "No one deserves such treatment. And if it makes you feel any better, I've completely cut off all contact with him. I have absolutely no desire to resume the relationship." "Really?" she asked with hope in her voice. "Absolutely true," I confirmed. "In fact, I think you deserve better treatment too. The way he treated me after our breakup shows his true character." We talked for almost 2 hours. Olivia told me about how their relationship developed, how gradually she began to notice red flags but ignored them because of her infatuation. I shared my experience with him and how I coped after our breakup. By the end of the meeting, the atmosphere had completely changed. Instead of hostility and tension between us, a strange sense of solidarity emerged. Two women united by a common negative experience with the same man. "You know," said Olivia as we were about to leave, "I always thought you were somehow special since he can't forget you. Now I see that's not it. It's about his own inability to move on and his desire to control both of us." "Exactly," I agreed. "We both deserve better." 3 weeks have passed since my meeting with Olivia. A lot has changed during this time. A few days after our conversation, Olivia ended her relationship with my ex. Rumors say it was a stormy scene during which she told him everything she thought about his manipulations and comparisons. Surprisingly, Olivia and I have started something like a friendship. We're not best friends, but we text occasionally and have even met once more for coffee and chat. It turned out we have much more in common than we might have thought. As for my ex, he tried to contact me several times after their breakup, but I stood firm and ignored all his attempts. The last time he sent a long message apologizing for his behavior, but I decided not to respond. Some bridges are better burned. This whole situation has taught me a lot. I realized that even when someone provokes you, there's always a choice: to sink to their level or to stay true to your principles. I chose wrong in that bar bathroom, but I was able to correct my mistake later. I also learned that aggressive behavior often hides pain and insecurity. Olivia was acting from a place of vulnerability and manipulation, which doesn't excuse her words but explains them. It reminded me of the importance of empathy, even toward those who seem not to deserve it. Finally, I understood that sometimes the best revenge isn't a sharp response but the ability to move on and live a good life. Now I'm focused on my mental health, studies, and building healthy relationships with people who value me for who I am. In the end, we all make mistakes and say things we later regret. What's important isn't that we make mistakes, but how we correct them and grow because of them. And if you ever find yourself in a situation like mine, remember: sometimes the best response is no response at all. And sometimes, it's a helping hand extended to someone you considered an enemy but who might be as much a victim as you are.